Welcome back to Local Decision. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rusty Ray, and we're joined today by the incumbent Blaine City Council member, Andy Garvais from Ward 3. Andy, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Rusty.
A busy summer, a busy time. Even if the meetings have been all on Zoom lately, they've still been plenty busy, and you're still able to hear from a lot of folks in Blaine.
Yeah, we've been very busy. COVID has really changed the way that government all across the board has done business, but we've adapted, and so we've had a lot of our meetings online via Zoom. We're just getting back into City Hall now, so we're under a hybrid model right now, and the hybrid model is really important so our citizens can still participate in the meetings, because we understand that there's a whole spectrum of feelings and where people are at in their lives with COVID, and so we wanted to make sure that whether someone could attend in person or via online, that those means were provided.
Is the majority of what you're hearing from the people that you represent, or is it about COVID or the city's response or what's open, what's not? Is that really dominating things right now?
I would say, yeah, COVID in general and anything COVID related. So we're hearing a lot about freedoms, freedom to move around and have the beach and the parks open and different amenities. Businesses, so that's been a big one about doing whatever we can to get businesses back up and running. And I guess the most recent one that has heated up this week has been the debate over to mask or not to mask, and whether or not the city would implement a mask policy. Would
the city look at maybe doing that, or are you waiting to see the governor? I mean, because the other cities are doing it, Edina, Mankato, Rochester, all up and down. Yeah. Is that something that the city is at least considering, or?
So we haven't considered that. We've taken our cues a lot from the state officials and what the governor's executive orders have stated, and we feel that it's a very passionate issue that people are really divided on, and that right now we're just going to follow the governor's direction and kind of react to that. Our priority right now still is to keep our residents safe and to keep our local economy vibrant and help our businesses rebound, which is why we've implemented certain programs to help businesses through this tough time.
What can a city do, right? I mean, the state, does make a lot of these rules, and that really dictates the businesses opening, restaurants, indoor, outdoor, all of those things. What can the city do, and you mentioned just a moment ago, but can the city really do specific things to help these businesses?
Great question. Thanks for asking, Rusty. So it's the city, in a broad stroke, can be more restrictive than the state government has been, but we can't be less restrictive. So, for example, if the governor orders restaurants to close, we can't then mandate or give permission to restaurants to reopen. And even if our messaging was that our police department is not going to enforce businesses to close, it's a dangerous game, because you may be giving businesses a false sense of security or hope, and they reopen, and then they're at risk of civil penalties from the Attorney General, which could be $25,000 or more. Another example would be if the governor issues a statewide mask order, we can't then issue an ordinance that allows people not to wear masks. We can't be less restrictive than they are. We could implement a citywide mask order, but again, we haven't discussed that. Other things that we can do is really look at what are we doing to make it easier for businesses to do business, and really getting rid of the bureaucratic red tape and restrictions and the handcuffs that are on them. And so we've done a lot when it comes to outdoor dining. In fact, we led the way, and when the governor announced that he was going to allow outdoor dining, within the week we had plans for businesses to submit to us their plans on outdoor dining, which included being able to use parking lots and other areas that aren't typically authorized for seating and dining, and tents, for example, not requiring tent fees if they wanted to put up a tent over a parking lot area to provide outdoor seating for their businesses. We've also instituted a grant, well, first it was a loan program, and now with some of the federal COVID money and the authorized uses, we're looking at the loan program, converting that to a grant program to help get some of that federal CARES Act money to our local businesses quicker.
Now, the other backdrop of this primary and general election, of course, is the civil unrest and the movements, the various movements, all centered and started basically in Minneapolis this summer. What are you hearing again from those you serve, and then what are you hearing above you and around you at City Hall, so to speak, about law enforcement, public safety, different things like that? Is there a lot of that conversation happening in Blaine?
Yeah, again, another great question. The civil unrest that our state and our nation and world, for that matter, have seen recently is, I think, just a causation of things that have been underlying issues for years. What I can say is that Blaine is safe, and we have some of the best professional officers that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting and serving. Our Chief of Police, Brian Pradani, is second to none. He takes these issues seriously. He's getting feedback from our residents. He's incorporated different training measures for our officers. There's been a lot of talk about the strength and the size of our police force. I know one of the candidates has said that we don't have enough and we're under 1 per 1,000. But that's just not true. I mean, we're well over a 1 to 1,000 ratio, and that's just one of the very off-the-cuff benchmarks that a community may use to judge their police force and if it's adequate or not. And our chief of police, we've given him the tools and resources to evaluate his department and our community and let us know what he needs. And the person best to let us know what they need to protect our community is the chief of police. And so they've been undergoing a study since early January. The civil unrest had kind of put a pause on that because it was an all hands on deck to respond to that. But they picked that back up, and so they're looking at their police force and how it's structured and comprised, and to see if there's any changes. But I've always supported a strong public safety environment. We've consistently added police officers to our force every year, and I advocated for our emergency manager position within the police force, which we received last year, and it's proven invaluable with not only our COVID response, but the civic unrest and some of the things that we've seen down in Northtown Mall. And in fact, a lot of our surrounding communities had asked us for kind of our blueprints and what have we been doing because we've been so successful in our response to all these issues.
Well, and anytime you talk about examining the force and maybe what's needed or what's, where they would like to grow, you got to talk about the resources to pay for that. Now we're staring at a situation where businesses may not be able to pay their property tax, may not be able to, and they're not making money, and people aren't spending money in the community. Yeah. Is there a challenge looking ahead? If Chief Pradani says, well, we really could do these things, how are we going to pay for it? Is that also a conversation looking ahead?
Yeah, it's a real concern that we balance every year. When you look at Blaine, I want residents to know that we are one of the best run cities when you compare us to other cities our size, like Maple Grove, Eden Prairie. We have one of the lowest costs of governments around. And we have a AAA bond rating that we received in 2019, and only 22 cities in the state of Minnesota have a AAA bond rating. Mm-hmm. So when we bond for capital improvements or we borrow money, it's at a cheaper rate, and so we're actually saving our residents money. But COVID-19 in our projected shortfall, we have a $2.1 million projected budget shortfall, and as the year progresses and our tax revenues, property taxes come in from the county, we'll know more about if that shortfall is more on pace with 2.1 or if it's less. Mm-hmm. And we've cut about 1.6 million in savings, which are mandatory staff freezes on mm-hmm. hiring, no travel, no staff training, conferences, things of that nature. So we've done our best to reduce that. But yeah, you're right. Every time we look to add a position, we try to assess how are we going to pay for that? Is it really needed? Are there internal efficiencies and things that we can undertake to either free up the funds for the position or to make the position not needed because of efficiencies? And people may think that adding one police officer isn't that much, but it's over $100,000, right. Approaching $200,000 a year when you look at not only the compensation, the benefits, but the squad car. Right. The squad car you see around the city and all the other equipment that gets issued to an officer costs a lot of money, and it's required if we're going to put another person on patrol.
Well, let's talk about what City Hall will look like in 2021. There's going to be a new mayor. And there's going to be at least one new council member, mm-hmm. and still a relatively new, although not brand new, city manager or city administrator. So are there challenges and opportunities for the city there with the change in leadership?
Yeah, I think with any kind of change in positions, whether it's on the council or government civilian positions, that you lose kind of a knowledge base, which is really critical to understand why we are where we're at and how we got there, and some of the challenges and hurdles that we've overcome, because new individuals may not realize those challenges or why certain decisions have been made. But I feel like we're very fortunate. Some of the new council members that have come on board in the last couple terms have really dug in and learned a lot, myself included. And we're very fortunate with the city manager. We have Michelle Wolf. She was the assistant city manager for Aurora, Colorado. And she has come on and just done a fantastic job of listening to the council members, the public, and the staff, and just understanding our city. She's originally from Minnesota and moved away to Aurora for that position. But we're really glad to have her, and I think we're in a good position right now. I think my fear would be is if we start to see a lot of turnover, different initiatives and projects that myself and others have spent time building relationships and networking and laying the groundwork, kind of lose that traction, and the new individual or individuals would have to kind of start back at step one and build those relationships.
So let's wrap up with this. What do you feel like you've brought to the council in your first term as a resident of Blaine with a younger family, a veteran, correct?
Correct.
And are you bringing certain things? Have you been able to apply those as strengths in building those relationships and partnerships that you just mentioned? What have you been able to do in those 4 years?
Yeah, appreciate that question. I think first I want to highlight that, of why I'm serving. I'm not serving because I have greater aspirations. I don't look at this as an entry-level job and a stepping stone to something higher. I serve because that's just who I am in my fabric. That's why I've been serving the military for now 18 years, going on my 19th year. And always looking at ways to give back. So I was part of the Hurricane Maria response in Puerto Rico while I was serving on the council, doing council meetings at night. In the day I was managing our federal military response down there. But for the city of Blaine, I've continued to be strategic in our vision and talk about smart growth and looking at what we're doing. When I came on, I said I wanted to see 5, 10, and longer capital improvement plans on our public works and also our park and recreations. If we don't know what we have, how old it is, what it's going to cost to replace, and when we need to replace it, we can't look at where we need to be in 5 and 10 and 15 years from now, and those costs can really creep up on you. And the other thing I've been really successful at doing is trying to target certain businesses to come in Blaine. A lot of people don't realize the city of Blaine has very little control on what businesses are going to come in and develop, but the residents have a very vocal opinion on what they want to see, and that doesn't happen without us going out and targeting it. So we've met with people like Whole Foods, and we were very close to sealing a deal with that, and then Amazon purchased Whole Foods, and so that kind of shifted their model. But Hy-Vee, Quick Trip, and some other restaurants along the Lexington corridor are examples of businesses that I've targeted and have been successful in getting to build in Blaine.
We're really excited about the Hy-Vee here at North Metro TV. We're hoping that it gets up quickly. So
yeah, they've been a little slower than we would have liked, and it's they I think it's just their model as they build as they have the equity, and they want to finish one project before they start the next. But I'm super excited as well.
Okay, Andy, thank you for coming by today.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.